Hey y'all, welcome to Sandy's Library. I'm Sandy, and in this video I'm going to tell you a little bit about my great-grandparents, Willie and Lizzie, and their early years of their marriage. Excuse me. These are my maternal grandmother's parents, William L. Williams and Elizabeth Azeline Fuller. If you need visuals, there are links posted in the description outlining both of my grandparents' family trees. Willie and Lizzie were married in Bray, Ashley County, Arkansas on April 4th, 1889. And while no marriage record has ever been found for Willie and Lizzie, the above dates are the one that my grandmother and her sisters always gave when asked about it. They said the date was written in the family Bible, which was destroyed in a fire in 1928. And my guess is that Willie and Lizzie's marriage license was probably destroyed in that same fire. And just so y'all are aware, we'll talk more about that fire later. But back to the April 4th, 1889 date. And this is the one that I always heard. Our half-cousin does mention in his manuscript that Audrey Mobley Fuller notated in her research the same date, April 4th, 1889, as their marriage date. Obviously, after talking to Willie and Lizzie's children, way back when they were all still alive. But apparently our half-cousin didn't consider Audrey's info as a valid source, because he certainly went out of his way to disparage my great-grandmother. In his manuscript, first he details the April 4th, 1889 date, and then he proceeds to try to pick it apart. Because he could not find a marriage record for Willie and Lizzie, he discounts not only Audrey Fuller's correct information, but all of the word of mouth he got confirming the date as the one handed down through the siblings' families. And he just tosses all that out. Instead, he keeps digging into Ashley County, Arkansas's records until he found one for a marriage in 1890 for a William Williams and a Lizzie Lawson. And our half-cousin latches onto that marriage record even though the dates and names are mostly incorrect, and he attaches to that damn thing like white on rice. He goes so far as to suggest that my great-grandmother, Elizabeth Azeline Fuller, was not actually a Fuller at all. My DNA, though, says she was a Fuller. But anyway, he reports that Aunt Allie was very indignant when he suggested that to her, and she shut him down quick. And in his manuscript, he suggests that because Aunt Allie had shut him down, so then Lizzie must be a Fuller, right? But even so, he's on this Williams-Lawson marriage record like a dog with a bone. He just won't give it up. So I ask myself, why? Why not? Why? That's not them. Why won't he let it go? And the only logical explanation that I can come up with is he's still looking for a way to disparage my great-grandmother. And yes, it seems very petty, but why else would he be hanging on to that, and especially after being told that's not them? And I gotta tell y'all, what he goes on to further suggest is not cool. He basically insinuates that Lizzie was previously married to some guy named Lawson, when he knows damn well that Lizzie, her parents, and Willie all told Willie and Lizzie's children that it was a first marriage for the both of them. So, for our half-cousin to suggest that that wasn't the case, it also means that he's suggesting that Lizzie, as well as Willie and Marion and Belle Fuller, all lied to the Williams children. And you know what else? It's a damn good thing for our half-cousin that he's already passed away. And before I had a chance to read his piece of shit crap. Because look, if he had been alive when I read that, I would have called him up and cursed him out. Oh yeah. And look y'all, I haven't lived in Louisiana for decades, but if I had lived anywhere near him when I read that shit, I would have gone to his house and cursed him out. he thinks Aunt Allie was indignant? Yeah, well, just wait until he saw my grandmother's temper, straight up from Belle Hawkins, I'm told, coming out of me. Oh, yeah, I was steaming mad, y'all. I have 2 rules for my genealogical research. Don't tell lies, and don't hide the truth. And if you're talking about my ancestors, I expect you to follow my rules. And if you can't, I'll help you. So anyway, back to Willie and Lizzie. And y'all know I will dig to uncover the truth. And the truth of the matter is that Lizzie's parents told my grandmother that Lizzie and Willie married on April 4th, 1889. Okay, so we're going to go with that date. Willie and Lizzie's first child, Julia Bell, who I knew as Aunt Julia Bell, was born December 28th, 1889. She was named after both of her grandmothers. Now, if you do the math, Willie and Lizzie were a few days away from exactly 9 months of marriage on the day Julia Bell was born. So I'm acknowledging that it's entirely possible that Lizzie was already pregnant when they got married, but I doubt she knew it yet if she was. Because remember, it was constantly said during my childhood that Willie and Lizzie were smitten with one another. So I can see how they might have gave in to temptation during a couple of weeks before the wedding. Or she could have gotten pregnant on her wedding night and delivered a little early, because we know now that women carry babies for roughly 9 3/4 months. So anyway, I know some of my cousins aren't going to like my thoughts on Willie and Lizzie's wedding date and the birth of their first child, but whatever. I'm looking for the whole story, y'all, and science says it's very possible that Lizzie was already pregnant the day they got married. And for the record, it doesn't make a difference to me. I was pregnant with Stevie when Bill and I married, but nevertheless, Willie and Lizzie had a total of 11 children, of which 3 died young or in infancy. They were as follows, and I'll let you know who the 3 were that didn't survive to adulthood. So we have Julia Bell, born in 1889, Sheldon, born about 1891, and he died young of the croup. Ina was born in 1893, and numbers 4 and 5 were a set of twins, Alma and Alvin. They were born in 1895. Alma was called Bud all of his life, while Alvin died in infancy of the croup. And next we have Viola, aka Sis or Sissy. That's my grandmother. She was born in 1897. William Jefferson, who I knew as Uncle Jeff, was born in 1899. Heman Pruitt was born in 1901. Sally Ann was born in 1903. And Ali Coutura, the creator of fictitious tales, was born in 1906. And I just want to remind y'all, Willie also had a sister named Ali Coutura. 2 different people. Both of them bitches, though. And last but not least, child number 11 was an unnamed baby who was stillborn in 1908. And we'll talk more about that later. But for now, we can safely assume that Willie was indeed proud of his new family, because in 1890, while living in Fountain Hill, Ashley County, Arkansas, he wrote a letter to his mother and sister Anna announcing Julia Bell's birth, saying, "I am 21 years old and already the father of a baby girl." Willie was baptized into the RLDS Church in 1892, and we'll talk more about that later too. Sometime in the late 1890s, the Williams family moved from Berea, Ashley County, Arkansas, to Nash, Louisiana, which is a now extinct town that was said to have been located about halfway between Eris and Chatham. Those are 2 little towns in Jackson Parish that are about 5 miles apart. Back in the day, Nash had its own post office, which also served the Eris community, until the sawmill came to Eris in 1898, which was probably the nail in Nash's coffin. Depending upon who you ask, Jeff, Heman, Sally, and Allie could have been born in either Louisiana, Mississippi, or Arkansas. But I'm here to tell you that most census records support Louisiana. as the birthplace of Uncle Jeff and all subsequent children. And I should note that it's common practice in genealogical circles to accept the information from records closest to the event, in this case, a person's birth. And what that basically means is that for more recent generations, we typically trust the census records closest to the ancestor's birth over, say, the death certificate. Because, remember, the information on a death certificate is only as good as the informant's knowledge, which may or may not be worth much. So, as a kid, I heard numerous stories about frequent moves back and forth between Arkansas and Louisiana for the Williams family. I also remember talk of a trip or two back to Mississippi for the Fullers, where the Williams family tagged along, but those trips didn't last long, as it's reported that Willie didn't like Mississippi. And apparently Marion and Belle didn't want to be too far away from Lizzie, because after Lizzie married Willie, it seems that wherever Willie and Lizzie went, Marion and Belle ended up there too. It's said that on one of those trips between Arkansas and Louisiana, the family wasn't able to bring much of their personal property along with them. It's reported they were only able to put a few chairs, a couple of mattresses, some quilts, and a few other small household items in the bed of the wagon. I wish I knew where our half-cousin got this story from, among others that we'll be talking about in upcoming videos, because if I knew where it came from, I could better judge its accuracy. I really wish someone would have noted if traveling light like this was the norm for the family, or if something else warranted them to leave with very few household items. It's almost like they packed up in the middle of the night and split. Sounds familiar, don't it? But seriously, y'all, it couldn't have been easy for families like the Fullers and Williamses to replace furniture and the like wherever they went. I mean, they moved a lot. So I have to wonder what prompted them to leave Arkansas this time. And with so little of their personal property, it appears that the Fuller family accompanied them on this particular move too, because it's said that Marion Fuller's horse died along the way, and he had to resort to hooking an ox to his wagon to complete the journey. Y'all know, I really wonder if this particular move had something to do with that event that I've already mentioned a couple of times that I like to call the religion wars. And you know what? I'm not going to tempt y'all any longer. The next several videos I'm going to devote to such topics as magic, ghost stories, religion, and other spooky shit. But the wait is almost over. Next video up, I'm going to tell you about the religion wars. So, until next time, later gators.